Okay, so we are live now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Speak Up Africa, where we aim to inform, engage, and empower the youth. So today, I'll be your host for today, and we'll be talking about a comparative analysis of the higher education placement systems in Kenya and Uganda. My name is Salome Washuka. I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by my lovely panelists today, Douglas and Musoma, and I'll just give them a moment to introduce themselves, then we can get into it. So, karibuni sana, you're welcome, Douglas and Musoma. You can introduce yourselves.
All right, thank you. I think I'll go first. My name is Douglas Drekonen. Thank you very much. Asante sana. That is Kiswahili. My Kiswahili is not so good. I'm from Uganda. A student pursuing Bachelor's of Law at Uganda Christian University. I'm in my final year. I am a member in the Sixth Youth National Youth Parliament here in Uganda, but also I serve as a co-founder and I serve as a co-founder, but also a program associate with an organization called Greenery Environmental Research Center Uganda. At Greenery Environmental Research Center Uganda, we focus on policy advocacy, environmental research, and climate justice. Otherwise, I'm very happy and thrilled to be here to share insights, a comparative analysis to Kenya's proposed university placement bill, but also provide an insight on what we have here in Uganda. Otherwise, asante sana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally, for this opportunity. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Musoma Hilary. I'm a graduate, studied at Kenyatta University School of Law, just right for graduation in December, and took a bachelor's degree in Law LLB. I'm the speaker of the Kenyatta University Students Association. I'm also the current serving school congressperson for School of Law, Kenyatta University, and a member of the Student Governing Council for Kenyatta University. I look forward to having a fruitful engagement on this particular issue on university placement, higher education placement, comparing the two jurisdictions, that is Kenya and Uganda. I'm really eager to learn what happens in Uganda particularly, so that we can take notes and delve into the issue and see whether we can have solutions, recommendations thereof that we can propose to even our different leadership scopes. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. So I think we can get into it, and I'll start by explaining the concept, or rather the inspiration for this forum. So generally, this forum has been inspired greatly by the University's Amendment Bill of Kenya 2023, which has currently been tabled before Parliament and is yet to get to the first reading stage. So there's an opportunity for the youth to publicly participate in this bill. Now, this bill it's a two-part bill. This is two separate bills introduced by two separate members of Parliament, but there are just three provisions in this bill. Yeah. So the first one is on the creation of a digital certification for effortless verification. So this proposal basically aims to mandate all universities, both private and public, to have an online database so that people can verify their academic credentials online instead of having to go to universities physically and verify their details there. So it's basically just about to save Kenyans, from having to visit or having to waste energy and fuel going to verify the academic documents, and for employers as well. The second amendment is a revamp of the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services, commonly known as the KCPS, which basically is in charge of placing students in higher education systems, that is the universities and colleges in Kenya, and the composition of the board of the KUCCPS is to be changed to add two vice chancellors from private universities, to ensure that private universities actually get sufficient representation. Lastly, the last provision that is there is a revision of the functions of the board, which basically aims to revise the functions of the board to actually place students in public universities and not public and private universities. So there's the addition of the word public to the universities section. So that's basically it. And we at Speak Up thought that it would be best to compare our two systems together so that we can easily draw out the similarities, kind of find the strengths in the systems, and point out weaknesses and hopefully come up with solutions. So I think with this brief bio, we can get into it. And I'd like to start with you, Musoma. So Musoma, kindly describe the university placement system in Kenya. Just give us an overview of how the system works and how people get to be placed in universities. And then I think Douglas, you can give us the Ugandan system.
Okay, thank you so much, Sally. Here in Kenya, the university and colleges placement is a systematic process and has different procedures. So once somebody is done with the first bit of the 8-4 part of the education system, they have the remaining 4, that is the university 4-year course. Now, once they're done with their high school, during their final year of high school, the students are allowed to make an application through the school, where they make an application to the body that is in charge of placement of higher education, that is the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, KUCCPS, where the students apply through their high schools for the particular courses they would want to pursue while at the university. Remember, at this time they're making these applications, they haven't sat their national exams yet. So you may make an application for a particular course, and you may end up meeting the clusters for that course at that particular university you chose, or failing to meet the clusters, thereby necessitating your revision of the same. Remember, not all courses have the same clusters in different universities. For instance, you have Bachelors of Laws. The clusters for Bachelors of Laws in Kenyatta University may not necessarily be the same as those for Jomo Kenyatta University, as those for the University of Nairobi and other universities. So all these courses have variant university cluster points and cutoff points for that matter. So when you apply, you're not so sure of whether you will meet the cutoff points or cluster points, but majorly people apply through what they want to pursue. Once you are done with your exams and the results are finally released, you now know your grade, and you can be able to tell your cluster points and cutoff points. Then you will go back to your portal. So every student, once an application has been made through their high school, there is a portal for every student on the KUCCPS website, where every student has a portal, and that is the portal that is used to make every application and going to every process and stages to ensure that finally one is placed in a university or a college of their choice. So this is what happens. Once you have that portal and the results are out, you have your grades and you have your cutoff points and cluster points for different subjects, different courses. You make a revision. So there are always timelines. The portal is self-directing, that you are given this particular timeline to revise your courses based on the grades you got, or maybe change of tune on whether you initially you wanted to pursue law and now you want to pursue a different course, maybe medicine, maybe you changed course, maybe you want to pursue something different from what you wanted to pursue before, or maybe what you wanted to pursue before was out of peer pressure and out of influence, so you want to change and now pursue what you want to pursue. Or maybe what you wanted to pursue before, you're not able to meet its clusters, and so you have to choose another different course altogether. So that portal is self-directing, where you're told that you have this number of days to make your revision, or based on the first time application that you made. So you're given a time frame, and whereby you have to make these revisions. You have to apply to the universities you want to go to and the courses. Normally you apply to 4 universities. No, you apply 4 different courses. the first course is usually you apply the same course in different universities. The second choice is any course, any university. The third choice is any course, any university. And the fourth choice is always any course, any university, but different from the ones you indicated in number 1, 2, and 3. So once you make that revision, there's always a window for closure of the same. And then the COOPS itself, the KUCCPS itself has to go through your applications and applications for revision, where you'll be lucky to get a placement. Then the KUCCPS portal will tell you that you've gotten placement to a certain university to pursue a certain degree. Where you're not able to get such placement, you are told to make a second revision. So the time frame again for second revision is opened, and again, as I said, the KUCCPS portal is self-directing. You make your second revision based on the clusters that you've gotten, and based on the fact that you could not manage to secure your first courses, on the fact that based on facts that you had been explained to by the KUCCPS. Maybe the clusters changed or you are not able to secure, so you have to revise during the second revision. Again, the same procedure is followed for that duration of time to which the KUCCPS is going to allow you to. Maybe you're given 10 days to do that. You make the application, and again they go again to review your second application. And then the second application, you now get your university degree or not. If you fail to get a university degree during the second revision, you wait again for a third revision. And this one is always the final revision. Now with this one, you either have to choose to revise your courses based on those ones that are remaining. Because remember, during the first application, first revision and second revision, there are those who have already secured placement in those different universities for those different courses. So the more number of times you revise, the more lesser percentage of opportunity you will get to pursue those courses in those particular universities, because of the flooded number of students that have already taken those particular courses. So you're already left with a choice of courses that you do not want to pursue through them. So if at all during the third revision, amongst the courses that are available on the KUCCPS portal, and again amongst the universities that are available, then you can make a third application for third revision, and the courses are reviewed and you're given a placement. Remember, various students always have different preferences. There are those who would prefer to go to universities in certain areas. So that informs their choice of application for whatever university. There are those who just want to come to university. The university is located in Nairobi. There are those who want to go to universities located in other areas like Kisumu and Nakuru and Mombasa. But and that choice, that preference is what informs what you will apply for, the university that you will apply for, the course that are offered in those particular universities, etc. So once the first application, first revision, second revision, and third revision are done, and you have been informed that you've been placed, now the KUCCPS portal now is open for you to see which particular course you are placed for. Because at this first revision, second revision, and third revision, you're only told that you are congratulations, your application went through and you're successfully placed in a certain university, but you are not told on which university you are placed and which course particularly you're going to pursue. So once the whole verification processes are done throughout all the application and revision stages, then the portal is opened and you're told you have been called to pursue Bachelor's of Laws degree in Kenyatta University or the University of Nairobi, or any other course and any other university thereof to which you made that application. Now, that is always the end of the placement service. Now, from there, now the universities take over. Yeah. So for now, Sally, I think I'll stop there. I'm not so sure whether you would want me to explain more.
I think you've covered it enough. Yeah, I think you've covered it enough. So maybe we can hear now from Douglas. Douglas, how does the university placement system in Uganda work?
Well, thank you once again. In Uganda, the placement system works in a way that it's primarily managed by what they call UNEB, which is Uganda National Examination Board, and UTESA, which is Uganda Tertiary Education Skills Authority. Now, UNEB is a body that governs sitting exams in primary O level, which is from senior 1 to senior 4, and then A-level, which is senior 5 and senior 6. So what then happens under Uganda National Examination Board is at the end of your A-level, which is senior 5 and senior 6, that is, I think, what they call high school, you sit an exam called Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. Now, from the Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education, they will use your results to place you in the institution or university that you want to go to. So what then happens is the admission criteria is different from each university. But before we even go to the admission criteria, we need to understand exactly how UNEB works. So when you sit your O level. The O level is the O level is called UCE, Uganda Certificate of Education. Then you advance into A level and you sit for Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education, which is the A level. So when you're entering into universities, they will use points from your O level, which is where you sit. You sit for your UCE, but then they will also use the results that you attain from UACE, Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education, your A level. So usually, when you're in A level, you take 3 principal subjects. They are arts and they're sciences. So if you want to pursue a degree that is in arts, then you choose arts-related subjects, and those arts-related subjects are history, geography, literature, Christian religious education, among others. And all of us know the traditional science subjects. So you choose from the two. Of course, if you're choosing from the two, you should definitely know that in my university, I am going to do an arts-related course, or I'm going to do a science-related course. So what happens is when you're done after the 2 years of A-level, the Uganda National Examination Board will come up with results. And the results in A-level amount up to 20 points. So those 20 points are got in that there are 3 principal subjects, and then the 2 subsidiary subjects. So each principal subject carries 5 points. That means if I am doing history, economics, and literature, I have to get a 5 in history, a 5 in economics, and a 5 in literature. Then the other 2 subsidiary subjects are general knowledge. You either do ICT or you do if it's not ICT, then it's subsidiary math. So if you total all those up, it will come up to 20 points. So the best students, if I told you want to go and do medicine, if you did sciences in A level, you would, if let's say you're applying now, I'm now coming to the admission criteria. Now the admission criteria in Uganda varies from university to university. You remember in Uganda we have both private and public institutions. Now, if you want to go into a public institution like Makerere University, what then happens is you must have at least a minimum of 17 points, mostly because the competition is so high. They would use the results you get from O level, that is Uganda Certificate of Education, to come up with points to add on to the ones you get in A level. So that will determine how you enter into a university. But then if you want to enter to a program like LLB, the Bachelor's of Law, what happens is you in public institutions like Makerere University, you should have scored a minimum of 13 points for boys and 12 points for girls. So that means if I did, it's the aspect of affirmative action comes in. Yeah. So if you get 13 points minimum, you can go and sit for what they call the pre-entry examinations. So those pre-entry examinations, you have to score a minimum of 50%. So you find very many people apply to be part of Makerere University, and Makerere University usually takes maximum 300 students. So we find about 1,000 students apply, so they take only 300 students. So that is the admission criteria for LLB in Makerere. Now, in my university, which is a private institution, what then happens is you also apply, and the minimum here in my university to be part of the program, it is 12 points for boys and 10 points for girls. So then that means after you meet that eligibility criteria, you then sit for also pre-entry exams. But here you not only have pre-entry exams, but the pre-entry exams are broken into 2. there is an oral examination, and then there is a written examination. The written examination is out of 40, the oral examination is out of 60. So that is how you get into LLB here at Uganda Christian University, which is a private institution. So each university has its own admission criteria that they follow. But for you to access university placement, you need to at least have a minimum of 2 principal passes in your advanced level, Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. And then lastly, on the issue of government sponsorship. Government sponsorship is provided on 2 grounds: on government, which is on grounds of merit, but then secondly, for those who do not have the financial capacity or capability to put themselves into university. However, the challenges that have been entailed on the government sponsorship, because the so-called cream schools in Uganda, which are mostly private institutions, do take the lion's share on the list of government sponsorship, and those who are supposed to, who actually deserve to get on the government sponsorship, miss out because maybe they went to a less privileged school and couldn't meet the points. But that is a conversation for another time. But briefly, that is what happens here in Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that analysis. So I'm curious on government sponsorship, since you brought it up. How much does the government cover in terms of tuition fees? For instance, in Kenya, Musoma dropped out, but for here in Kenya, the government sponsorship covers a bit, like a quarter of the school fees. Because for instance, I'm from Kenyatta University, and the school fees while I was studying was roughly 20,000 Kenya shillings, but then the Higher Education Loans Board will disburse 4,000 Kenya shillings to my school fees, and then credit me 16,000 Kenya shillings to my bank account once I managed to secure the government sponsorship. So is that the same case for Uganda? Do you have a body that disburses the government funding, and how much do they cover in terms of tuition fee? Do you also get a bit of pocket money so that you can survive, so that students can survive throughout the semester, or how exactly does it work?
Okay, how it works here in Uganda is somewhat different for those who are in position to get into government sponsorship. Now, what happens is for you to get, government covers everything. If you get into government sponsorship under the body of Higher Education Students Financing Board, the government covers everything, including your hostel. You're also given feeding allowance of per semester approximately 700,000 Ugandan shillings. That is for your feeding. So that is what the government does to its government students. So you get everything. You're catered for. They cater for everything. However, for those who don't make it on the government list, you have to pay for your tuition entirely. So there's a question. There's debate here in Uganda about the on the issue of a highly monetized education system, which, you know, it's draining. The fact that we are largely a poor country, with 41% of our population living below the poverty line in a population of 48 million people. So that is worrying. And you find that when you don't make it on the government list, some students drop out midway their university program. So it's a huge challenge. It's a very huge challenge when it comes to the issue of accessibility to higher education, which I think there need to be reforms. When someone reaches the point of dropping out in university, know that the situation is badly off. So yeah, that's what happens.
Okay, and you mentioned that you're from the Ugandan Christian University, which is a private institution. So what would you say is the place of private institutions? Because ideally, I believe the ideology that we have here in Kenya is that, you know, private institutions are a bit more expensive compared to public institutions. Once you get rid of them, if you do not make it to, you know, you did not manage to secure government sponsorship for your higher education studies here in Kenya. So is that the same case in Uganda? Do you have, and what would you say is the place of private universities? Do they really help to enhance access to higher education in Uganda? Do you have scholarship programs in private universities?
I would like to start by foremost saying that private institutions are not actually relatively, private institutions here in Uganda they're expensive. That's true. They're very expensive, and it being expensive, it first and foremost affects the issue of accessibility. The university that I'm in at the moment is considered to be the best law school in this country, and to access education here, you must have very deep pockets. However, for those who do not have deep pockets in my institution, there are scholarship opportunities that come with it. They usually give sponsorships to students who are challenged financially, but also not only give students who are challenged financially scholarships, but also help the campaigns that students organize through the student guild, among others, to support students who are facing tuition challenges. But that aside, education in Uganda is quite expensive. Even in the public institutions, it's very expensive. And as I earlier on said, I still go back to the argument that I raised, that in a country of 48 million people with 41% of its population, largely a poor one, that means living below the poverty line. It's very hard. It's very hard for people to raise resources to fund higher education. So that said, even in public institutions, courses are expensive. If you don't make it on the government list to go and pursue medicine in a public institution here in Uganda, you definitely have to part ways with lots of millions of shillings to pay for you to be in position to access education. That's why I still say that argument. There's been a lot of debate here in Uganda about education being highly monetized and the government not paying keen attention on seeing to it that its citizenry, because we are largely a young country, but also a young East Africa community as a whole. So it's sad that it is largely monetized, but even in public institutions, education in Uganda is expensive. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I see that. So Musoma is back, and I'd like to redirect this question to both of you. Let me take you back to when we were discussing about the higher education placement systems. And in your own view, I'd like to know whether you think that this system is fair. I think what I understood from Douglas's description is that the higher education placement system is a bit hectic, but is it fair? Do you get to choose? You don't really get that much of a direct say in the course that you want to pursue. So is it really fair in terms of course selection? And again, Omusoma is back. Is it also fair in terms of the funding that people get? Do you think our students deserve much more funding, or yeah? So the basics, is it fair?
Hi, Sally. I didn't get the entire question. I think I have problems, very many problems with my network. And the fact that I'm being disrupted by calls from electoral commission, So the fact that I was using my phone to connect the network on my laptop, ilikuwa na issues sana. So I don't know. Can you kindly repeat the question for me so that I get you quite clearly?
Okay. So Douglas and I delved into a bit of the private universities in Uganda when you dropped off, and now I redirected a question to what we were talking about initially before you dropped off the call, and it's all about the higher education placement system. So my question is it fair in terms of course selection? Because you see, the way both of you described it, the students do not really have a chance to choose the course that they want. They are really restricted with all those procedural technicalities. So my question is, do you think that those are necessary, or is it a fair process to the students now?
Okay, thank you, Sally. I don't think we can term these as procedural technicalities. And this is my reason. When you allow a latitude to these students to select what courses they are going to pursue, or give them all the freedom to choose what they want to pursue for the university, and then for sure, one, many universities are going to be rendered useless because most of these students will go to the big and known universities in their countries. For instance, here in Kenya, if you give them a latitude to choose, they definitely run to KU, the University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, the JKUAT University, and probably Moi, and list of Egerton. Most of them will not go to all the other universities. Of course, in exception of private universities, because private universities have equally better facilities as the big public universities in Kenya. So if we allow every student to choose whatever they want to choose and place them according to who they want, then we'll get it wrong because most of the universities in Kenya will be redundant. Number two, if we chose to allow students the latitude to select the courses they want to select without going through a sieved process, then some courses again are going to be rendered useless because every student would want to pursue the big five, the big six. They would run to courses such as medicine, law, engineering, architecture, and they'll not get into other courses, and mostly, especially those ones that require trained skills and manual skills. So again, the problem with just allowing free range of choosing of courses is to prevent certain courses being declared useless and no longer important to the university degrees, or no longer important to the higher education system. Now, that is just two. Three, we have people who have read and studied and specialized in particular courses, in particular trainings. And so once these courses are getting fewer number of students undertaking them, or no number of students undertaking them, then you should have wasted this person's time, entire life, studying to get to the levels of their education at that time. And then they will be rendered jobless because who will they be teaching? Everybody shall have run away. I think this is not an entirely autocratic process. Autocratic process, I don't think it's really much of dictatorship. And even if it is, it's kind of guided dictatorship, if I lacked any better word to put it. Because yes, in as much as you are restrained within the limits of your clusters and your cutoff points, you also have a leeway to choose particular courses within the range of those clusters and cutoff points. So it's not entirely a process where the universities would have the Kenya universities and central Kenya universities and colleges central placement service would have a total say. They take the input of the students based on the category they shall have grouped them under, and so the students are allowed to choose the courses within that category or courses that fall below that category, and not necessarily courses that fall above that category, because we also have to cluster them according to their capabilities, capacities, whereas we may have a little bit challenges in determining capacities and capabilities, because not every student that got a particular grade after their end of the 4 years in high school exam, the grade reflects their ability. Not all of them, but a good number and a majority of them. So I think it's more of an assumptive process, that tends to incorporate a virtual reality of it. That's all that I can say as for now.
Okay, thank you. Douglas, do you share the same perspectives as Musoma, or do you differ with him?
Kindly come again with the question.
Okay, so I'd ask whether, in your view, you think that the university placement system in your country is fair, and do you share the same sentiments with Musoma or that they are actually necessary and proportionate, or do you differ with them?
I would say that from the point of the book, our policies are fair, but from the practicality, I greatly challenge our mode of placement. First and foremost, I applaud the government for coming up with the affirmative action that the girl child is greatly was historically speaking, our societies didn't accept the girl child to get into education, but also institutions of higher learning. So I applaud the government for going ahead to come up with a provision in our law that provides for affirmative action that every girl child who is joining universities, they are given weights of 1.5 points. So that means if a girl scores 12 points and she is not in position to access, or if she scores, let's say 11 points or 12 or 10 points, and she wants to do law at Makerere University, so she will get 1.5 weights, which will possibly push her to be in position to do law at Makerere University. So on that point, I would like to applaud our government on that they are promoting education among the marginalized communities, especially among the girl child, which, in my opinion, I think it's a good one. But on the issue of government sponsorship, I think it's a good initiative on paper, but the people who access the government funding in Uganda is highly questionable. You find that students who go to the most expensive schools because they have the best teachers in the country are the ones in position to score high grades, but then are the ones also who access this government sponsorship, leaving the people who are poor, marginalized out of the equation, which therefore renders a huge question mark on the questions of accessibility, but also questions the policies that we have in place, which are, by the way, very good. So my argument still stands that on paper we have very good policies that promotes access to higher education, and one would argue that yes, our country has greatly improved access to higher education, but I think we need to come down to the issue of the practicality, the implementation, and the effectiveness of these policies that we have, which I've just showed you that it is highly questionable, and we need to the government needs to sit down and revise who exactly needs to qualify for the government sponsorship, because at the moment the people who qualify are the people who are privileged and who go to institutions who are very expensive and have the capacity to pay themselves in school. So access to higher education, yes, it's there on policy, yes, but then the practicality is highly questionable. So yeah, that is the perspective or comparative analysis I can offer from the perspective of a Ugandan citizen.
Okay, thank you. I think that is something I personally agree with you, that most policies, not just in regards to universities, but I feel like most policies that we have out here are actually good on paper, but the practicality aspect of it is very lacking. And maybe that we can have another discussion another day on how to make these policies actually become realistic enough for them to be put into practice without any hindrances. So now I want to talk about the challenges that students do face when enrolling into universities and colleges in East Africa. And we've talked a lot about having high tuition fees and school fees, and the fact that not everybody can afford that, not everybody can access funding for government funding for universities. So my question is, are there other challenges apart from this and money? Are there other challenges that people face when trying to enroll into universities, from the process of being placed into a university and also now starting courses and studies in university? I think we can start with you, Musoma.
Okay, thank you, Sally. There are always challenges in the processes, right from the placement service applications to actually accessing these universities and beginning a course. And most of these challenges, of course, you said other than the expenses and the high cost of getting into these universities, I think all challenges, or virtually all challenges, stem from these exorbitant rates. For instance, let me just give an example of Kenya currently and today. We've been using a different funding model, the university-centered funding model, for the last so many years, until around April this year, where the president had to get another turn of introducing a new funding model. This funding model to which nobody still understands to date. Even we as the student leaders don't understand. Some of the lecturers we inquire from don't understand. Even the university's management have a very great picture of what this new funding model is. Now, initially, you will have students being funded by government, and the money is directed directly to the universities through what you call the university's capitation. Right now, this is not this is not a university-centered funding model. It's more of a student-centered funding model, where other than the university's capitation, because definitely the government is cutting on the university's capitation. For instance, a student who was undertaking a bachelor's degree in law in Kenyatta University would pay a maximum fee of around 15,950 for a semester. That would amount to about 32,000 for an academic year. This was calculated based on the university's capitation that have been given by government. And then they also calculate on based on the HELB money, the Higher Education Loans Board, the money that is allocated to the student for their course within the academic year. Today, the government capitation no longer counts. So the new funding model requires that this is a student-based process, where now instead of having a balance of around 32,000 of fees for bachelor's of law degree for one academic year on your student's portal, you'll have a balance of almost 200,000. And this 200,000, the government has told you that you're going to have it funded in different models, where the less fortunate will get this percentage, the blessed ones, the able ones, and the going to get a different percentage. The extremely vulnerable, the mid vulnerable, you know. One thing is that the government has not helped us distinguish or helped us understand which criterion it's going to adopt to distinguish between the vulnerable, the less vulnerable, the capable ones, you know. It's presenting itself as a challenge. Now, we've seen how governments operate. They delay so much in funding this process. That is not going to be an exception of this one. So should the government delay in relaying this money, for which we can't see any signs of government sending this money before the deadline of fees, which is around 3rd or 4th of October, then we're going to see a lot of chaos in these universities, because nobody understands these processes, the money is not relayed, the balances on the portals are so huge to the extent that the parents will not be able to retain it. Now, the whole confusion within whether I should proceed with the university, whether I should proceed with this course, whether I should change the course to a lesser costly course, I'm not so certain about the trajectory my course is going to take because of this whole confusion brought about the university funding model. And every challenge that arises with it, the stress, the uncertainty, you know, is based on the finances. You know, we say with money, nothing is impossible. The challenge that comes with financing of this educational system and based on self-financing and government financing is one that brings along brings forth all the challenges that would come with joining universities. So to me, I think if everything was certain, clear, without so much bureaucracies and sudden changes of certain policies and legislations without certain processes being followed, it may end up resulting into uncertainty within the universities and thereby necessitating unrest. Yeah. So that is what I can respond to. So what I say is that if we had everything clearly enough, then I don't think we would face so much major challenges other than the challenges of fitting into the university process, into the university system, because that's another challenge as well. But this is not really one that I think should be introduced in this discussion, because this one is discussing about placement systems. But once you are within the system, then you face different other challenges other than those that you incur when getting into the system itself. So once you get into the system, of course, the process of adapting, understanding what you come to do, getting to meet different cultures, all those are challenges. But I don't think they are necessary to be discussed right now. I think the challenges that we'll be focusing on right now are the challenges that you incur during the placement process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So I see Douglas has dropped off the call, but before he comes back, I'd like to know from how you and Douglas have described the university placement systems. There seems to be a lot of similarities between Kenya and Uganda in terms of system operations, but not into the tiny, tiny details. So is there something that you feel that Uganda does that Kenya should adopt, or do you feel like our systems should just, be left alone? Hey, Musoma, you are muted.
Sorry. You can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Whereas Douglas was explaining about their placement service and their placement systems, at that time I wasn't present because of my network glitches. So I'm not so much conversant about what is said in their placement systems. But I think if I'm sorry to be fast, I think our systems are okay. Just a few challenges that need to be addressed. And I think the new bill, according to the summary that you read during the beginning of this discussion, the bill is aimed at rectifying or trying to polish the already challenges that we face. So for me, I don't think I would be willing to adopt anything from any other country as at now. I think we are okay in my own understanding. So I don't want to say much past that.
Okay, I understand. So now my next question is, we've talked about the challenges the students face. We've described the university placement systems and how they work. And now, what do you think are some of the strengths and the weaknesses that we have in our system as we conclude? Because at the beginning of the live, I mentioned that we have to compare systems. We have to draw out the strengths and the weaknesses, some sort of a SWOT analysis. So what do you think are some of the strengths in the Kenyan university placement systems? And what do you think are some of the weaknesses in this?
Okay, thank you for that question. In our placement systems, we have various strengths and various weaknesses. Let me begin with the strengths that we have. Now, throughout the process, I think one strength that we have is a transparent process. From the university's placement system, service system, you would see a transparent process. You would see a process that is self-guiding, a process that is devoid of corruption, a process that is devoid of so many hiccups. It is self-guiding. It's a process that is easy to understand. It's a process that can be undertaken by any person, including the persons that are just so new into the system and so new, not so much knowledgeable about what happens. It's because of its transparency, and it's a process that gives every person, every student in Kenya, regardless of their background, regardless of where they come from, regardless of uh, their challenges, it gives them an equal opportunity to be amongst the students from the big and rich families inside the university. They say education is an equalizer, and for our systems, I think they are much intended to achieve this. That education being an equalizer, our systems have much helped to achieve this based on their transparency. I think the transparency and the efficiency of the system is a big credit I would give to our system placement service. But now, on the challenges side, one, I think the process takes too long. For instance, the first step, the first application takes place when before somebody finishes their 844 exams, the 84 exams, that is the high school exams. By the time somebody is being placed to a university, it's almost 1 month before they enroll. This is like 10 months or 8 months or 7 months, almost a half a year from the first application to the first revision, to the second revision, to the third revision. There will be a couple of months that will pass. And within these processes, there is always a lot of anxiety within the students to know where they'll be placed and to pursue what in particular. So I think the process is too long. I think these processes should be so much automated because in as much as they are automated, I feel like there is some manual working somewhere that would result into us having delayed processes. So I don't think it's really necessary that a student applies for placement in a particular university or college and takes a whole 4 months, 5 months before they know their fate. So the biggest challenge is the time duration in which the process takes, right from the time of the first application throughout the first revision, second revision, and third revision. The second problem is a little bit of inefficiency, though not so gross. For instance, somebody could have applied to different colleges and universities for various courses, but the central placement service would place them in various courses that are not necessarily aligned to their choices. So at some point, many of the students will be placed there in their choices of choices according to the application, but some would be placed in places they never ever imagined they would go to, and places they never even imagined that they would apply. So that hitch is what I'm here to understand. But other than what I've presented as challenges, I think I think on our side we're okay. If we address those two particularly, then we'll have a very efficient and unbuggable system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Douglas, welcome back. I hope you can hear me. So Musoma and I were just discussing about the Kenyan system, and now I think we want to hear from you. We want to know what are some of the strengths and the weaknesses that you think about the university's placement system in Uganda. I'd like for you to highlight a few strengths and a few weaknesses so that we can have a concluding as we conclude the session.
All right. I'm sorry I dropped off. So the strengths in Uganda, I would say, are particularly on our policies. The policies that we have as a country are very good. So, for example, the affirmative action, where the girl child gets 1.5 points to get into to get into university. That's a strength because it's promoting education among the girl child, which I think it's very good and it's very important. And the other thing, another strength that I think the university placements here in Uganda have is the flexibility. How? Flexibility in a way that if at all you do not have the required points, you can go ahead and sign up for a diploma, which they usually do not deny you that right. Because if you have failed or you fail to meet the required points in Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education, you can sign up for a diploma. And from the diploma, you then advance to a degree. But then I think there are very many challenges. And the first challenge that I think is very important to note in tonight's conversation is the challenge relating to the issue of implementation. That we have very many good policies, but then how we implement them is the question. For example, the policy relating to government sponsorship. Government sponsorship is, in my opinion, very segregatory. It's very discriminating in that the people who well deserve
these opportunities do not get the chance to have these opportunities. So in my opinion, I think that is a weakness. But aside from that, education in Uganda is largely expensive. So that is a strength, because if you want to increase access to higher education, you need to reduce on how much you charge your students. Because the fact is, I earlier on highlighted it in my submission, that you have a country with approximately 48 million people. 41% of that population live below the poverty line. So we have then that means we have like 59% of Ugandans who are even not rich, are just there. You are not below the poverty line, but are just surviving. So expensive education or expensive higher education is a challenge, in my opinion. And maybe the recommendation. I think moving forward, we don't just have to lament, but also have to provide solutions to these problems, these challenges that we highlight. I think, in my opinion, the government of Uganda needs to sit down and improve on who is to access these government sponsorships. Imperative to note that we have very many students uh, from upcountry institutions or upcountry secondary schools who largely are poor, but would also want to benefit from this scholarship. So they have to review on the criteria on how they offer out these government sponsorships. But also, aside from reviewing on how they offer out government sponsorships, I think they also need to review tuition. Tuition is very expensive, be it in a public or private institution. Other than that, it's also important to see that the government comes up with programs that enhance or improve people's uh, economic livelihood. So that when people have money, then they can easily afford education and any other lifestyle. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think at this point we've come to the end of our session, and I'd like to give each of the panelists a moment to give their concluding remarks, and then I think we can close. So we can start with you, Musoma. Just give us your concluding remarks on this session, and then yeah, we can conclude.
Thank you so much, Sally. My concluding remarks
Okay. I can't hear you, Musoma. Are you?
Can you hear me right now, Sally?
Yes, I can hear you, but your voice is a bit low. Do you mind coming closer to the microphone?
Is it better?
Uh, not exactly, but it's a bit better.
Okay, this one?
Okay, I think we can work with that.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity you presented to both of us to try and analyze and try and compare our two systems. Yes, I'm happy to meet my Ugandan counterpart, and I'm not so sure what happened to the Tanzanian counterpart, but I hope next time we have an opportunity to delve more into such matters and compare the systems in the three countries and learn a lot and see on whether we can be the elements of change and elements of recommending certain solutions, certain policies, and recommending changing policies and the change in governance of some of these bodies, institutions, and processes. So I think from both ends, each of us has something that has learned. I've learned something from Uganda that I didn't know of. I'm sure my counterpart from Uganda has learned something that they were not so sure of and so knowledgeable of about Kenya. And I think we are better placed. We are apart from the rest of us here in Kenya. We have better knowledge, and maybe we can adopt it next time. We converse into such issues and see the way forward. Asante sana.
Okay, you're welcome. So Douglas, do you mind giving us your concluding remarks so that we can close this session?
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again, Salome and Speak Up Africa. It's been very informative and interesting being part of this wonderful discussion. Thank you, my brother, Musome from Kenya. I've definitely learned a lot, and I think we as young East Africans, we need to, hold our leaders accountable, and we also need to take up key leadership positions to influence these policies or these issues that we articulate on such platforms. Otherwise, that's it. Very, very big thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on this platform, but also to air out my views from a Ugandan perspective. And that aside, I think our borders shouldn't really separate us because we are one East Africa and we are together in this. So everything that we do, we need to know that we're in a global village. So that's it. Asante sana. Thank you very much. And maybe looking forward for another engagement another time. My name is Douglas Drekonel. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Douglas. Thank you, Soma, for joining us, for sparing the time and joining us today. I'm really, really grateful. I'm really, really grateful for you guys joining today. And yes, to our audience, thank you also for tuning in. You can follow us on all our socials at Speak Up Africa with a K. Normally it will the K is for constant. So yeah, you can follow us on all our socials. We are all over. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Threads. Yeah, we're just everywhere. So you can always follow up to, stay informed and engaged on social issues and when you want to learn more about some of these trending issues. So thank you so much once again, guys. To our audience, thank you once again. And I think we can close the session. You can also feel free to comment, to post your comments in the comment section on all our platforms, and yeah, we can follow up and engage more with you and respond to your queries. So thank you once again, and have a lovely afternoon.